Now that we've seen how client-server communication works, let's start working towards building a chat system. And the main difference between a chat system and what we've done so far is that you have multiple clients that are all talking to the same server, and they're sharing information among each other. So the round trip is going to be a client sends a chat message to the server, and then the server forwards that chat message to all the clients that then display it to the user, right? So I type a line into chat, everybody sees it. They respond to it in whatever order, some of them do, at whatever time they respond. Those things all show up at the server, and the server sends them to everybody who's chatting. Something else that's a little different is that the clients are distinct, right? So each client belongs to one person who is chatting, and so you need some way of identifying who sent the message. And you could also add additional information like when it was sent. And it would be nice to know when somebody joins the chat room, even before they actually type something, and when somebody leaves the chat room. The communication becomes a little bit more complicated than it was before. So instead of just sending a single line of text like the server acknowledges your line, now we want to send some structured information. So you want to know at least what type of message the client is sending to the server. Is it somebody joining, somebody leaving, or somebody posting a message? The name of the person who posted the message, and that's probably a good place to start. So I'm going to show you a little trick here, which is pretty straightforward. I'm only sending a line of text from the client to the server, but there's no reason that this line of text can't be a more complicated line. And in particular, what I can do is I can create a Json object or an immediate object. So like, for example, let message equal an object, and then maybe we'll have a name, and we'll have a type of message. So maybe this will be a join message. And then if it's a join, I don't need anything else. So how can I send this object to the server? Well, I can turn it into a piece of text using json.stringify. So here, where I have a line of text that I'm sending to the server, I can instead have a JSON stringified object. So let's go ahead and do socket.write json.stringify message, and then I want to add a \n to that so that it's one line. And this will work because it will take any new lines inside of the string or inside of the message, and it will escape them. It will escape all the funny characters into just a piece of text. And then I'm sending this to the server. So let's go ahead and see what that's like. So the line is now a JavaScript object in JavaScript object notation format. And so on the other end, I can use json.parse to turn that back into an object. So on the server side, if I get a line here, I can turn this back into an object like so. And then here I'll go ahead and output the message object. Okay, so let's rerun the server here. Great. So here's an actual object in JavaScript with some properties that I've specified. Now, to make this a little bit more interesting, I also don't want to just hard code these messages that I'm sending from the client to the server. So what I really want to do is be able to read the keyboard and take the input from the user and send that to the chat client. And I can use a line reader to do that. There's a read line. I can wrap that around a stream called standard input. And anything you type to the keyboard, that's the standard input stream. And you can make that be line oriented using read line. And so let's do that. So after I've gotten my connection to the server, I can go ahead and create a new interface. So let actually const keyboard reader is rl.createInterface. And I'm going to take input from standard in and write output to standard out. std out. There's also standard error, but I'm not going to do anything with that. And this will just appear on the console when I type into a command shell. So now I have a reader, and I want to go ahead and add an event monitor on there, an event listener. So when I get a line from the keyboard reader, I'm going to go ahead and post that as a message. So socket.write, basically this thing right here. Accept Json.stringify an object. Name is going to be username, which I have to provide somehow. And then the actual message, so the type is going to be a post. And the line is going to be the line that I read. And that actually comes from here. Okay, so user types in a line. I turn that into a JSON object, or wrap that into a JSON object, send it to the socket, and it should show up on the server. Now for the username, I'm going to get that from the command line when the user starts up the chat client for now. Later on, I'll provide a way for the user to specify their username when they start the chat client. But when you start up a node command like so, you can also give the command additional arguments. So for example, I want to give it a username here. And inside of node, this command line is turned into an array of strings. And the first one is going to be this, and then the second one is going to be that, and the third one is going to be this. And so I can pull values out of the array. And the array is called process.argv. So this would be process.argv sub 2. So let's do const username. Actually, I'm going to use, I'll keep it a variable. Username is process.argv sub 2. And let me just use let right now because I'm going to want to change it later. And then I have username set up here. So let's go ahead and try that. I still have the chat server running, and I have it. Nope, I don't have it. So let me start that. And here I'm going to go ahead and run it with the username Mark. Standard in is not identified. So it's probably process.standardin. Try that. Okay, message is not defined because I got rid of that. So let me get rid of this. Great. So let me type a line. So post is not defined. So this should have been a piece of text here. Okay, and then let's look at what we got on the server. I'm going to stop printing this socket here. Let me go ahead and get rid of that. So in server.js, when I get a connection, I console.log the socket. So instead, I'm just going to write a line. Client connected. Okay, so it didn't do anything. So let's see if I'm actually getting these line events when I type something on the keyboard. Yeah, so I'm definitely getting those input events. Doesn't seem to be sending lines though. Oh, I forgot to add a new line to the end. Right, I'm doing line-oriented input, and I forgot the \n there. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, so I sent the line, I got an acknowledgement, and if I look at the server, what I sent was a string representing a JSON object, and on the other side I got name, type, and line. So now what I can do is I can have multiple clients that all have different usernames, and each of these messages is going to get tagged. And I'll worry about join and leave later on, but for now, let me go ahead and open a new command shell. And I'm going to close this one and start it. So this is going to be Alice. Oops. So this one is going to be Alice. And this one is going to be Bob. And then let's do one more for Cindy. Okay, and Alice says hello, and Bob responds, hello, Alice. And Cindy says, hello, Bob and Alice. And when you do that, it locks the terminal up until you do that. So, but I got my message. I got a post from Alice saying hello, and a post from Bob, and a post from Cindy. And then the server just sent back, the server acknowledges your line for each line. But when you send a line, so I'm going to have Alice send a line. This is a line. So you'll notice that Alice got the response. Bob didn't get anything. And Cindy didn't get anything. Actually, this is Cindy, that's Bob. So once again, we'll watch this test. So I got the response here to Bob, but not to Cindy or to Alice. And the reason is pretty straightforward. In the server, every time a client connects, basically you get a new one of these functions. And this function is closed over the variable socket. So there's a different socket for each client that connects. And that's paired with a different socket from the client process that you're running for Bob or Alice or Cindy. So basically sockets come in pairs, one on the server side, one on the client side, and they get linked up. And then I have a different socket in a different client that's linked up to a different socket in the server. So 3 sockets on the server, 1 socket in each of 3 clients running in separate command shells. And what I want to do, so when I send the response back by writing it to the socket here, I'm just sending it back to the one person that sent me this connection, that connected to me. If I wanted to communicate to everybody, I need to do something special. And so what I need, there's actually a pretty elegant solution to that using event emitters. So here, I'm only talking to one client. But anything up here, this is going to be shared across all of the functions, all of the connections that I make. And what I can put here is an event emitter. So I'm going to go ahead and include event emitters, or event emitter. And then I'm going to just make a really simple subclass of event emitter. So let's go ahead and say class chat emitter extends event emitter. And I don't need a constructor. I don't need any methods. This is enough for now. And then I want to make a chat emitter object. So here's a chat emitter object. And then every time I get a line from a client, instead of just doing the server acknowledges your line, what I'm going to do is I'm going to emit that line using my chat emitter, which is shared across all of the client connections. And what am I going to emit? Let's go ahead and emit a message. And I'm just going to turn around for now and send, let's see. So I got a message from json.parse. Let's timestamp it. So that's going to give me a number of seconds since epoch, which is some date in 1976, give or take. And then that's going to be a property on the message. And then chat.emit, I'm going to go ahead and emit the, let's go json.stringify message plus \n. So now I've sent the message to the emitter, and the emitter fires off an event based on that. So what I can do here, inside the scope where I have the socket, is socket.write, or socket.on, I'm sorry, one more time, chat emitter.on message, actually post, gives me a message, and I'm going to socket.write that message. Okay. So I got a line from my chat client, and then I told the chat emitter to emit that message, a message event with that content. And then everybody who's listening to the chat emitter is going to get that content and write it back to its client. Let's go ahead and console.log here, make sure this is getting called. Probably isn't, but... And this is in the server, so let's restart the server. And we'll just do Alice for now. Okay, so I got my line, but the chat emitter didn't fire and get picked up. Oh, because this is sending an emit event, and this is looking for a post event. Let's try that one more time. So here's Alice, Bob, Cindy. Bob says test. Bob gets the message. Cindy gets the message. And Alice gets the message. And Alice says hello. Everybody gets hello. Cindy says goodbye. Everybody gets goodbye. So now everybody's getting the posts, so we can start building a real chat. We know who sent the message, we know the time it was posted, and we know the actual content of the message itself.